In a galaxy far beyond what anyone on Earth could imagine, there was a council of powerful alien species. This galactic council kept tabs on planets across the universe, deciding which ones were worth noticing and which ones weren't. Earth. Well, it wasn't even on their radar. To them, Earth was like that one messy corner of your house you keep forgetting to clean up. It existed, sure, but no one really cared about it. The humans living here were too busy arguing over politics, ruining the environment, and scrolling through their phones to think about anything outside their little blue bubble. But then something strange happened. A group of aliens called the Zorathians stumbled upon Earth completely by accident. These guys weren't exactly the sharpest tools in the shed. They were big, tough, and loved throwing their weight around, but when it came to thinking things through, they often dropped the ball hard. Their home planet had run out of resources, so they'd been hopping from one world to another, taking whatever they needed without asking permission. And now, thanks to some cosmic mix-up, they found themselves staring at Earth. The leader of these invaders was a guy named General Kravix. He wasn't just dumb, he was confidently dumb. When his team picked up signals coming from Earth things, like old satellite broadcasts and random radio waves, he immediately jumped to conclusions. This must be advanced technology, he shouted, pointing at blurry images of car commercials and soap operas. His advisors tried to tell him otherwise, but Kravix wouldn't listen. In his mind, Earth was hiding some kind of super weapon, and if they didn't act fast, humanity might use it against them. So, with all the subtlety of a sledgehammer, he ordered an invasion. Meanwhile, back on Earth, life carried on as usual. No one noticed the massive spaceship lurking near the edge of the solar system. Politicians argued about trade deals, kids played video games, and scientists scribbled equations on whiteboards while worrying about climate change. Nobody had any idea that danger was headed their way, or how hilariously bad the invaders would turn out to be. When the Zorathian fleet finally arrived, it became clear pretty quickly that they weren't exactly pros at this whole invasion thing. Instead of targeting major cities or military bases, they started bombing empty deserts and oceans. One squadron mistook a herd of migrating whales for submarines and wasted half their ammo trying to sink them. Another group thought Mount Everest was a secret fortress and spent hours firing lasers at snow-covered peaks. It was chaos, but not the kind anyone expected on Earth. People began to notice weird things happening. Strange lights streaked across the sky, and loud booms echoed in places where nothing should have been exploding. At first, most folks assumed it was just another natural disaster or maybe some new government experiment gone wrong. But then the truth started to come out. A scientist working at a remote observatory, let's call her Dr. Vasquez, was the first to piece together what was really going on. She intercepted fragments of the aliens' transmissions using cutting-edge AI software and realized two shocking facts. One, the invaders thought Earth was armed to the teeth. And two, they had absolutely no clue where anything was. As news spread, panic erupted around the globe. World leaders scrambled to respond, holding emergency meetings and issuing vague statements about unidentified threats. But instead of uniting against the common enemy, humanity did what it does best: it got divided. Some countries accused, others of secretly inviting the aliens. Conspiracy theories flooded social media, claiming everything from government cover-ups to alien abductions. Meanwhile, ordinary people took matters into their own hands. A bunch of gamers, for example, decided to fight back in the only way they knew how: by live-streaming themselves hacking into alien drones. Using flight simulators and clever programming tricks, they managed to turn several of the invaders' machines around mid-flight, sending them crashing into each other. Others grabbed cheap consumer drones, strapped fireworks onto them, and sent them buzzing toward the alien ships. Sure, it wasn't exactly high-tech warfare, but it worked well enough to confuse the already bewildered Zorathians. General Kravix, meanwhile, was losing his mind. Every time his troops tried to make progress, something went wrong. His communication systems kept glitching, broadcasting garbled messages that made no sense. When he finally managed to send a clear message to Earth, demanding surrender, it was met with laughter. People recorded videos mocking the aliens' terrible aim and posted them online, turning the invasion into a global joke. By the end of the first week, it was painfully obvious that the Zorathians had bitten off more than they could chew. Earth may not have been prepared for an alien attack, but its inhabitants were nothing if not resourceful. From farmers building makeshift weapons to musicians blasting sound waves at alien sensors, humanity was proving itself surprisingly hard to conquer. And deep down, General Kravix couldn't shake the feeling that he'd made a huge mistake. As the Zorathians continued their bumbling invasion, humanity found itself in a situation that was equal parts terrifying and absurd. The aliens' attacks were sporadic and poorly aimed, but they still caused chaos wherever they struck. Entire towns were evacuated after drones buzzed overhead, firing lasers at random targets. Crops burned, buildings crumbled, and people fled in panic. Yet, amidst all the destruction, something unexpected began to happen. Humans started fighting back. It wasn't organized resistance, not at first. There was no grand plan or unified army. Instead, ordinary people took matters into their own hands, using whatever tools they had available. Farmers, for instance, became unlikely heroes. Out in the countryside, where alien ships often swooped low looking for strategic targets, farmers rigged up tractors with scrap metal and old machinery. These makeshift contraptions weren't exactly high-tech tanks, but they worked well enough to scare off smaller alien patrols. One farmer even managed to trick an entire squadron of drones by setting up fake tanks made out of cardboard and paint. When the aliens fired on them, he celebrated by blasting country music from his barn speakers. In cities, things got creative too. Musicians realized early on that loud noises seemed to disorient the invaders. A rock band held an impromptu concert in the middle of a park, blasting amplified guitar riffs and drum solos directly at hovering alien craft. To everyone's surprise, the ships wobbled and retreated. Inspired by this success, other musicians joined in, turning urban areas into stages for improvised performances. From classical orchestras playing deafening symphonies to DJs spinning electronic beats, sound became one of humanity's most effective weapons against the invaders. Even kids got involved. Armed with water balloons filled with glitter, they launched guerrilla-style attacks on low-flying drones. The reflective glitter blinded the alien sensors, sending them spiraling out of control. Parents initially worried about letting children participate, but when videos of smiling kids pelting drones went viral, it became clear that this battle was bringing communities together in ways no one anticipated. While all this grassroots resistance unfolded, a small group of scientists worked tirelessly behind the scenes to understand the Zorathians' technology. At a remote observatory, a researcher intercepted fragments of the aliens' communication signals. Using advanced AI software, she pieced together snippets of their language and discovered something shocking. The Zorathians thought Earth was armed with super weapons. They believed humanity posed a serious threat, which explained why they kept attacking despite their obvious lack of coordination. This revelation sparked both fear and hope. On one hand, it meant the aliens wouldn't stop until they felt safe. On the other hand, it gave humans an edge. They could exploit the invaders' ignorance to turn the tide of the war. Armed with this knowledge, the scientist shared her findings online, urging others to help analyze the data. Within hours, thousands of volunteers from around the world joined the effort, pooling their skills to decode more of the alien transmissions. The breakthrough came when someone noticed a pattern in the Zorathians' behavior. Their attacks always originated from centralized hubs, massive motherships orbiting high above Earth. If these hubs could be disabled, the entire fleet would lose its ability to coordinate. But how? That question led to another wave of creativity. Hackers, gamers, and tech enthusiasts teamed up to tackle the problem. One teenager suggested using hacked flight simulators to infiltrate the alien systems. Another proposed building EMP devices capable of disabling their electronics. Working together, they developed a plan: launch simultaneous strikes on multiple hubs while broadcasting false signals to confuse the remaining ships. As preparations for this counterattack gained Tensions rose among world leaders. Governments argued over who should lead the effort, each wanting credit for saving humanity. Some nations hoarded resources, refusing to share vital information or supplies. Others accused rivals of secretly collaborating with the invaders. It was messy, chaotic, and frustrating, but also painfully human. Despite the infighting, ordinary citizens refused to give up. Social media became a hub for organizing resistance efforts. Videos showing successful tactics spread like wildfire, inspiring others to join the fight. Memes mocking the Zorthians' incompetence popped up everywhere, turning the invasion into a global joke. People laughed through their fear, finding strength in humor and solidarity. One particularly memorable moment came when a parade float shaped like a giant robot caught the attention of an alien battalion. Mistaking it for a real weapon, the invaders unleashed everything they had, reducing the float to rubble. Unfortunately for them, local news crews captured the whole thing on camera. Footage of the attack aired on TV and went viral online, complete with captions like "Aliens versus Cardboard, who will win?" For days afterward, the Zorethians avoided populated areas entirely, convinced that Earth's defenses were far more advanced than they appeared. Back in space, General Kravix grew increasingly frustrated. Every attempt to assert dominance ended in failure. His troops reported bizarre encounters, dancing lights, deafening music, and strange projectiles that left their ships covered in glitter. Worst of all, his commanders began questioning his leadership. How had such a simple mission gone so wrong? Desperate to regain control, Kravix issued a new directive: focus on Earth's largest cities. Surely, he reasoned, that's where the supposed superweapons must be hidden. But as his fleet descended toward urban centers, they encountered yet another surprise. Humans had transformed skyscrapers into fortresses, equipping rooftops with mirrors and spotlights designed to blind alien pilots. Streets below teemed with civilians armed with homemade gadgets, ready to defend their homes at any cost. By now, it was clear that this war wasn't following the usual script. Normally, an invading force would overwhelm its opponent with superior firepower and strategy, but the Zorethians were neither strategic nor particularly powerful. They were clumsy, disorganized, and woefully unprepared for humanity's unique brand of resilience, and yet, despite their victories, humans couldn't afford to celebrate just yet. The Zorethians still outnumbered them, and their sheer determination meant they wouldn't retreat easily. As the conflict dragged on, questions arose: could humanity keep holding its ground? Or would the invaders eventually figure out how to adapt? For now, though, Earth stood firm, a testament to the power of ingenuity, teamwork, and a little bit of luck. As the war between Earth and the Zorethians dragged on, humanity's chaotic resistance began to take its toll not just on the invaders but also on the wider galaxy. News of the botched invasion reached the Galactic Council, the governing body responsible for maintaining peace among advanced civilizations. To say they were shocked would be an understatement. The Council had strict rules about invading planets like Earth planets classified as Class D non-threats. These were worlds deemed too primitive or insignificant to warrant attention. Yet here was General Kravix, leading a full-scale assault on one of them. Diplomatic envoys from various alien species flooded the council chambers, demanding answers. Some argued that the Zorethians' actions violated interstellar law and called for immediate sanctions. Others saw the situation as an opportunity to push their own agendas. Certain factions within the council even suggested dissolving the organization altogether, accusing it of favoring powerful species while ignoring smaller ones. Debates turned heated, with ambassadors yelling over each other in languages no human could understand. The council descended into gridlock, unable to agree on how or if to intervene. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the chaos only intensified. People were tired, scared, and running out of resources. Food shortages became common in areas hit hardest by the invasion. Hospitals overflowed with injured civilians, and makeshift refugee camps sprang up wherever there was open land. Despite all this, humanity refused to give up. If anything, the struggle brought people closer together. Neighbors helped neighbors rebuild homes. Strangers shared food and supplies. Communities rallied around each other, proving once again that humans are at their best when times are toughest. At the heart of the resistance was a group of unlikely heroes: scientists, hackers, and everyday citizens who banded together to fight back using brains instead of brute force. One breakthrough came when researchers discovered a critical flaw in the Zorethians' technology. Their ships relied heavily on centralized control hubs, massive structures floating in orbit above Earth. Without these hubs, the fleet would lose its ability to coordinate attacks. It was a vulnerability humans could exploit, but doing so required precision and teamwork. Engineers and tech enthusiasts worked day and night to develop EMP devices capable of disabling the hubs. They scavenged parts from old electronics, repurposed car batteries, and even raided junkyards for materials. Gamers played a crucial role too, using flight simulators to map out attack routes and simulate strategies. Through trial and error, they figured out the best way to approach the hubs without getting blown out of the sky. Meanwhile, amateur radio operators set up networks to communicate across continents, ensuring everyone stayed connected despite the destruction. The plan was risky, but it was also humanity's best shot at turning the tide. Rebel groups launched coordinated strikes against multiple hubs, timing their attacks to overwhelm the Zorethians. Pilots flew small, agile aircraft loaded with EMP charges, dodging enemy fire as they approached their targets. On the ground, volunteers used hacked drones to distract larger ships, drawing them away from the hubs. It was messy, dangerous work, but it paid off. One by one, the control hubs went dark, leaving the fleet disoriented and vulnerable. For the first time since the invasion began, humanity found itself not just surviving, but winning. Social media lit up with videos of successful attacks. Footage of glowing EMP blasts taking down massive alien ships spread like wildfire, inspiring others to join the fight. Even skeptics couldn't deny the impact of these efforts. Governments, previously divided and ineffective, started paying attention. Military leaders studied the tactics used by civilian groups, incorporating them into official strategies. Slowly but surely, Earth's fractured nations began to unite under a single goal: driving the invaders away. But the Zorethians weren't ready to admit defeat. General Kravix, humiliated by his failures, grew increasingly desperate. He ordered his troops to double down on their attacks, targeting cities and rural areas alike. Yet every move he made seemed to backfire. His soldiers mistook harmless objects for threats: a flock of geese flying in formation, a parade float shaped like a rocket ship, and wasted valuable resources attacking them. Videos of these blunders circulated online, turning the general into a laughingstock. Memes mocking him popped up everywhere, from billboards to t-shirts. "Nice try, aliens," read one popular caption. Another showed a cartoon version of Kravix tripping over his own boots. Despite the ridicule, Kravix clung to his belief that Earth posed a real threat. His advisors tried to convince him otherwise, pointing out the obvious flaws in his reasoning. Why would a supposedly advanced civilization use such primitive methods to defend itself? Why hadn't they unleashed their super weapons yet? But Kravix refused to listen. In his mind, humanity was playing some kind of psychological game, luring his forces into traps while hiding their true power. Back on Earth, the mood shifted from fear to defiance. People stopped running and started standing their ground. Farmers fortified their fields with makeshift barriers. Artists painted murals on bombed-out buildings, turning ruins into symbols of hope. Musicians held outdoor concerts, filling the air with defiant melodies. Even children joined in, launching glitter-filled water balloons at low-flying drones and cheering whenever one crashed. Humanity wasn't just fighting back, it was thriving in the face of adversity. One particularly bold move came from a group of hackers who intercepted one of Kravix's broadcasts. Instead of delivering his usual ultimatum, viewers were treated to clips of dancing cats and upbeat music. A message flashed across the screen: "You snooze, you lose." The video went viral, further demoralizing the already struggling invaders. Morale among the Zorethian ranks plummeted. Soldiers grumbled about their leaders' incompetence, while engineers struggled to fix malfunctioning equipment. For the first time, cracks began to show in the invaders' armor, yet, even as humanity celebrated its victories, questions lingered. What would happen if they managed to drive the Zorathians away? Would the Galactic Council step in to prevent another attack? And what about the invaders themselves? Were they truly evil, or were they simply desperate? Rumors circulated that the Zorathians' home planet had been devastated by centuries of poor resource management, leaving them with no choice but to invade other worlds. If true, did that make them victims too? These thoughts weighed heavily on those leading the resistance. While most people wanted revenge for the destruction caused by the invasion, others believed showing mercy might be the smarter option. After all, humanity had proven its strength. Maybe it was time to prove its compassion as well. By now, the war had dragged on for months. Both sides were exhausted, battered, and running low on supplies. But one thing was clear: Earth was no longer the helpless target it had once been. Against all odds, humanity had risen to meet the challenge, turning what should have been an easy victory for the Zorathians into a humiliating defeat. And though the final battle still loomed ahead, one truth stood undeniable: Earth wasn't going down without a fight. As the war stretched into its fourth month, humanity's creativity reached new heights. The Zorathians' repeated failures had turned them into a cosmic joke, and people on Earth weren't about to let up. Every day brought fresh examples of human ingenuity and plenty of laughs at the invaders' expense. What started as scattered acts of resistance had grown into a global movement, with ordinary citizens stepping up in ways no one could have predicted. In the countryside, farmers became unlikely heroes. They rigged up tractors with scrap metal and old machinery, creating makeshift vehicles that looked more like something out of a Mad Max movie than actual military hardware. These contraptions weren't just for show. They worked surprisingly well against smaller alien patrols. One farmer even went viral after setting up decoy tanks made entirely of cardboard and paint. When a squadron of Zorathian drones fired on his army, he celebrated by blasting country music from his barn speakers. The video of him dancing in the field while alien ships retreated became an instant hit online. Cities saw their own brand of chaos-turned creativity. Musicians realized early on that loud noises disoriented the invaders, so concerts popped up everywhere. Rock bands held impromptu shows in parks, blasting amplified guitar riffs and drum solos directly at hovering alien craft. Classical orchestras played deafening symphonies from rooftops, while DJs spun electronic beats in the streets below. It didn't matter what kind of music it was, sound itself seemed to confuse the alien sensors, sending their ships wobbling off course. Entire neighborhoods joined in, banging pots and pans or honking car horns whenever a drone flew overhead. The message was clear: humanity wasn't going down quietly. Even kids got in on the action. Armed with water balloons filled with glitter, they launched guerrilla-style attacks on low-flying drones. The reflective glitter blinded the alien sensors, leaving them spinning helplessly before crashing to the ground. Parents initially worried about letting children participate, but when videos of smiling kids pelting drones went viral, it became clear that this battle was uniting communities in unexpected ways. Families worked together to build catapults, slingshots, and other simple tools to launch glitter bombs. Some schools even organized glitter strike days, turning the fight against the invaders into a fun, if slightly messy, activity. Behind the scenes, scientists and tech enthusiasts continued to study the Zorathians' technology. At a remote observatory, researchers intercepted fragments of the invaders' transmissions, piecing together bits of their language using AI software. They discovered that the aliens relied heavily on centralized control hubs orbiting high above Earth. Without these hubs, their fleet would lose its ability to coordinate attacks. This revelation sparked a wave of brainstorming sessions among engineers, gamers, and hackers eager to exploit the weakness. One teenager suggested using hacked flight simulators to map out attack routes. Another proposed building EMP devices capable of disabling the hub's electronics. Working together, they developed a daring plan, launched simultaneous strikes on multiple hubs, while broadcasting false signals to confuse the remaining ships. Pilots flew small, agile aircraft loaded with EMP charges, dodging enemy fire as they approached their targets. On the ground, volunteers used hacked drones to distract larger ships, drawing them away from the hubs. It was risky, chaotic work, but it paid off. One by one, the control hubs went dark, leaving the fleet disoriented and vulnerable. The Zorethians' response was predictable: confusion and frustration. General Kravix, already humiliated by his failures, grew increasingly desperate. He ordered his troops to double down on their attacks, targeting cities and rural areas alike. Yet every move he made seemed to backfire. His soldiers mistook harmless objects for threats: a flock of geese flying in formation, a parade float shaped like a rocket ship, and wasted valuable resources attacking them. Videos of these blunders circulated online, turning the general into a laughingstock. Memes mocking him popped up everywhere, from billboards to t-shirts. "Nice try, aliens," read one popular caption. Another showed a cartoon version of Kravix tripping over his own boots. Despite the ridicule, Kravix refused to admit defeat. In his mind, humanity was playing some kind of psychological game, luring his forces into traps while hiding their true power. His advisors tried to convince him otherwise, pointing out the obvious flaws in his reasoning. Why would a supposedly advanced civilization use such primitive methods to defend itself? Why hadn't they unleashed their superweapons yet? But Kravix wouldn't listen. To him, Earth was still a threat, and a personal insult he couldn't ignore. Back on Earth, the mood shifted from fear to defiance. People stopped running and started standing their ground. Farmers fortified their fields with makeshift barriers. Artists painted murals on bombed-out buildings, turning ruins into symbols of hope. Musicians held outdoor concerts, filling the air with defiant melodies. Even children joined in, launching glitter-filled water balloons at low-flying drones and cheering whenever one crashed. Humanity wasn't just fighting back, it was thriving in the face of adversity. One particularly bold move came from a group of hackers who intercepted one of Kravix's broadcasts. Instead of delivering his usual ultimatum, viewers were treated to clips of dancing cats and upbeat music. A message flashed across the screen: "You snooze, you lose." The video went viral, further demoralizing the already struggling invaders. Morale among the Zorethian ranks plummeted. Soldiers grumbled about their leader's incompetence, while engineers struggled to fix malfunctioning equipment. For the first time, cracks began to show in the invaders' armor, yet, even as humanity celebrated its victories, questions lingered. What would happen if they managed to drive the Zorethians away? Would the Galactic Council step in to prevent another attack? And what about the invaders themselves? Were they truly evil, or were they simply desperate? Rumors circulated that the Zorethians' home planet had been devastated by centuries of poor resource management, leaving them with no choice but to invade other worlds. If true, did that make them victims too? These thoughts weighed heavily on those leading the resistance. While most people wanted revenge for the destruction caused by the invasion, others believed showing mercy might be the smarter option. After all, humanity had proven its strength. Maybe it was time to prove its compassion as well. By now, the war had dragged on for months. Both sides were exhausted, battered, and running low on supplies. But one thing was clear: Earth was no longer the helpless target it had once been. Against all odds, humanity had risen to meet the challenge, turning what should have been an easy victory for the Zorethians into a humiliating defeat. And though the final battle still loomed ahead, one truth stood undeniable: Earth wasn't going down without a fight. As weeks turned into months, humanity's resilience inspired not only its own people but also observers across the galaxy. News of Earth's unconventional tactics spread far beyond its borders, sparking debates within the Galactic Council. Some species admired humanity's ingenuity and spirit, while others dismissed it as luck. But everyone agreed on one thing: Earth was unlike any planet they'd ever encountered. Its inhabitants were unpredictable, resourceful, and oddly charming even in the face of annihilation. For the first time in history, humans found themselves at the center of galactic attention, not because they sought it, but because they earned it. And deep down, they knew this was only the beginning. The final showdown between humanity and the Zorathians came on a cold, clear morning. The air buzzed with tension as rebel groups prepared for their most daring operation yet, a full-scale assault on the remaining alien control hubs. These massive structures floated high above Earth, serving as the nerve centers for the invaders' fleet. Without them, the Zorathians would lose their ability to coordinate attacks, and humanity knew this was its best chance to end the war once and for all. The plan was risky, but it had been months in the making. Engineers, scientists, and everyday volunteers worked around the clock to build EMP devices capable of disabling the hub's electronics. Pilots trained tirelessly, flying simulated missions using hacked flight simulators. Hackers set up decoy signals to confuse enemy ships, while ground teams prepared glitter bombs and sound waves to distract patrols. Every detail mattered, and no one could afford to make a mistake. This wasn't just about winning, it was about survival. As dawn broke, small aircraft took off from hidden bases scattered across the globe. Loaded with EMP charges, they soared toward the alien hubs, weaving through enemy fire with precision that surprised even their pilots. On the ground, civilians cheered as drones launched glitter-filled balloons into the sky, creating dazzling clouds that blinded nearby ships. Musicians played deafening symphonies from rooftops, their notes rippling through the air like invisible shields. It was chaos, but controlled chaos, orchestrated by millions of people working together for a common goal. The first hub fell within minutes. A burst of electromagnetic energy surged through its systems, shutting everything down. Alien ships connected to it immediately lost communication, drifting aimlessly in space. Cheers erupted from command centers around the world as news of the success spread. But there was no time to celebrate. The second hub proved harder to reach, guarded by swarms of fighter drones. Pilots dodged laser blasts and missile trails, pushing their planes to the limit. One pilot sacrificed his own aircraft to draw enemy fire away from the team, ensuring the EMP device reached its target. When the hub went dark, silence fell over the battlefield, not because the fight was over, but because everyone paused to honor the bravery of those who risked everything. By the time the third hub collapsed, the Zorathian fleet was in disarray. Ships collided mid-air, unable to navigate without guidance from above. Soldiers abandoned their posts, overwhelmed by confusion and fear. General Kravix, watching helplessly from his flagship, realized too late that he had underestimated humanity. His grand invasion plan had unraveled completely, undone not by superior weapons or technology, but by sheer determination and creativity. But instead of delivering a final blow, humanity made a surprising choice. Intercepting a transmission from the stranded fleet, researchers discovered something shocking. The Zorathians weren't evil, they were starving. Decades of poor resource management had left their home planet barren, forcing them to invade other worlds out of desperation. Their aggression stemmed not from malice but from necessity. This revelation sparked heated debates among resistance leaders. Should they finish the job and destroy the invaders? Or should they show mercy, offering aid to prevent future conflicts? After much deliberation, humanity chose compassion. Supplies were sent to the stranded Zorathians: food, water, and instructions for sustainable farming. Messages of peace accompanied the shipments, urging the aliens to rebuild their civilization rather than continue their destructive path. At first, General Kravix refused to accept help, humiliated by his defeat. But hunger has a way of changing minds. Slowly, reluctantly, the Zorathians began cooperating, accepting humanity's offer with quiet gratitude. The aftermath of the war reshaped both Earth and the galaxy. Inspired by humanity's ingenuity and unity, the Galactic Council reformed its policies to include lesser-developed planets in interstellar diplomacy. Earth gained provisional membership, earning a reputation as unpredictable, resilient, and oddly charming. For the first time, humans found themselves part of a larger community, a role they embraced with enthusiasm. On Earth, life slowly returned to normal, but with a twist. People now knew they weren't alone in the universe, and their newfound confidence rippled through every aspect of society. Art, science, and culture flourished as people embraced their place among the stars. Farmers who had once defended their fields with tractors now experimented with alien-inspired irrigation techniques. Musicians incorporated sounds recorded during battles into their compositions, creating music that told the story of humanity's triumph. Even kids continued launching glitter balloons, though now it was more for fun than defense. As for the Zorothians, they retreated to rebuild their civilization, vowing never to underestimate Earth again. Somewhere in the galaxy, General Kravix muttered under his breath, "Next time, we'll get it right." But deep down, he knew better. Humanity had proven itself a force to be reckoned with, not because of its weapons or wealth, but because of its heart. And somewhere on Earth, a teenage gamer updated his profile picture to read, "Saved the world, still waiting for my trophy." The war may have ended, but its lessons lingered. Humanity had faced an impossible challenge and emerged stronger, united not by fear but by hope. They had shown the galaxy what it meant to stand together, to adapt, and to persevere. And as they looked up at the night sky, they did so not with dread, but with pride. Earth might not have been on the menu before, but now it was a beacon, a reminder that even the smallest voices can change the course of history.